and welcome to this week's episode of the Popcorn Wind Down. I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tammy.
Thank you for joining us. This week's episode is brought to you by Infinity Stones Day Spa and Treatment Center. Want to feel like you can live forever and have all your stress disappear in a snap? Take at least 5 years of your life off your life with Thanos' premium full body treatment. Just mention Wind Down to get 30% off your first treatment and book your appointment at www.snapbackspa.com.
And for the disclaimer, when they mean that you're going to go back 5 years, that means you're going to disappear for 5 years.
It does
and
not
age.
Look, it does not mean that, okay? Didn't I tell you I do not read the fine print? I just let the check clear, okay?
Touche. We let the check clear. We definitely did. Go ahead.
This week, we break down the Eternals. Long before the Avengers, there were the Eternals, an elite group of immortal alien superheroes sent to Earth thousands of years ago to protect Earth from their immortal enemies, the Deviants. After centuries of hiding and blending in, the Eternals are forced out of hiding to once again protect the Earth from the Deviants and others who wish to destroy it. So, Tammy, what did you think about the Eternals? Should they live on, or was it rotten to the core?
I'll give it another chance, but I was disappointed in this new Marvel movie for Phase 4, I believe we're in.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely enjoyed certain parts of the movie, but as a whole, I was disappointed. It did not get me wanting, like, the only reason I'm going to like continuously like watch it and follow the story is because I am a huge fan of the Marvel universe. So of course I'm going to have to watch all of them, just like I watched, Thor: The Dark World. But it was different. It was a different concept, and I just was not fully invested in it. What about you?
I liked it more than I thought I would, especially based on all the negative buzz. I tried to stay away from actually deep diving into the reviews, but I did see a lot of the headlines. And of course, the Rotten Tomatoes score, and that it scored worse than Thor: Dark World, which was really, I think we've talked about before Thor, and it's universally known that Thor 2 is the worst of all the Marvel movies. Like, it sucked ass. And I did not find it to be that bad. To me, Thor 2 is still worse than the Eternals. So it's definitely better than that. Did you think it was better than Thor 2, or would you give Thor 2 the edge?
No. It was definitely better than Thor 2.
Okay.
I'm one of those where I actually did not think Thor 2 was as bad as everybody puts it. Now, I will say that it's towards the bottom of the list, and I can't think off the top of my head of a worse movie in the Marvel universe than Thor 2, but I didn't consider it to be as bad as, the rep that it gets. But Eternals was better than Thor.
Yeah. There are worse movies out there overall as far as movies being made, but for me, probably in the MCU, Thor 2 is at the bottom of the list. And like you, I can't think of a movie right off the top of my head, especially since they've unified the universe into the MCU. That's worse than Thor 2. Probably, gosh, is it which one don't I like? Iron Man 3, I think, maybe. I'm not crazy about that one. But anyway, back to the Eternal. So it's definitely much better than that. So I was overall surprised. And I'm with you. It was probably Marvel's most diverse movie. I give it credit for that. They had the first full-on love scene, which I thought was like, oh, wow. And they had the first gay character in family and the first deaf character. And I appreciate that none of these characters were secondary characters or sidekicks. Like, they were full on members of the Eternals. So I appreciated that. But I don't know. It was a hit or miss for me. I wanted to really like it because I love Chloe Zhao. I like the cast. I thought it was extremely well cast. What about you?
I did love I did like the cast. So I felt like it should have a lot of promise
Hmm.
because of how amazing the cast was,
Hmm.
but it did not.
Okay, so like, what didn't you like about it? Let's start there.
It was too emotional. Like it was too, oh, let's talk out our feelings. There wasn't enough action within it. And I understand. I get that they're setting up the story. And like you always say, like, you give them some leeway because the first movie, they have to set up the story. There were a lot to digest for the movie because these were characters that we had never met before at all. Like it's not like one or two of these characters showed up in another Marvel movie. No, brand spanking new to the universe. And introducing them, it wasn't it didn't give me the Marvel vibe. And I know, maybe there's some people that like that it kind of deviated from the Marvel vibe, but I was not one of those people. It just did not give me the Marvel feel. There was not enough funny parts to it. That's one thing that Marvel does very, very well is the character dynamics, the group dynamics within a large cast. And I don't think that came off very, very well.
Um, yeah, I can't completely disagree with that. I understand what you're saying because I for us to have never met the characters, any of these characters before, I thought it did a decent job of telling the history, while still trying to keep it to the present. Like you said, it was a lot to digest. And especially like, we've talked about before, Marvel has all these things mapped out, and there are ways, even though they try to make the movie stand alone, um, there are ways that you can watch a movie or a series without necessarily having seen all of the movies in the whole MCU. So I think probably it would have been better if they would have at least, especially since they knew the Eternals were coming, like we've known the Eternals were coming, if they could have found a way to just kind of introduce them, maybe even if it was in one of the after scenes, the post credit scenes, that they could have just dropped that little Easter egg about the Eternals or someone within the Eternals, so we would have had an idea. Um, that they were coming, and it wouldn't have been so much to digest. So um, for them to have to tell so much history and put it in the present, I think they did a better job, but it was still a little choppy. Um, so it was a lot to try to condense in a 2.5 hour movie, and I think sometimes it slowed it down a little bit, especially this when you had to keep going back and forth. That part seemed to take away from the present day storytelling. Like, I get it in the beginning when we saw what they were like when they showed us the scenes from Mesopotamia when they first arrived to the earth. That should have probably just been one long 10 to 12 minute sequence and brought us to present day, and we should have stayed there, instead of going back and forth the way they did for what was it, probably the first half of the movie.
Yeah, I
uh,
yeah.
yeah, so that was a little bit, that was a little bit choppy, and it took away from the storytelling. But to try to fit all that history in, I think they did a good job of making sure that we knew, and there wasn't much from their history that was left out. Like, I didn't feel like I had a lot of questions about how they got here or why they were here or any of that. So I got that part. Just maybe they could have found a different way to do it. But and you're right. I did think of it. I wrote it down. I was like, I thought of it as like a pilot episode. Um, and I'm with you. It wasn't my favorite, but I understood, and I thought of it more as I was going to say a jump off vehicle, but I didn't mean it like that. But it was a starting point. Like, I'm interested to see, okay, now that we've gotten this history out of the way, It was kind of like a history class that you go into, and I'm a history buff, but it was like, okay, this is a little bit. There were parts that were really really interesting, but overall the class wasn't that great. But you still want to come back because you know it has potential. Does that make sense?
It does.
And so I was just like, yeah, but yeah. Did you? Who was your favorite character? Did you have a favorite character?
Um, it was Sprite up until she became a betrayer. Um, I ooh. Okay, so without like taking away the questions of ethics of
Mm-hmm.
his power, I did like Makari, and Druid. So I like those two characters. Um, I liked I liked Sprite. I like Dan Whitman. I wish we could have had more scenes with him, especially seeing who he's ultimately going to become. More of a back on that. I like the valet. So I love the valet. He was hilarious, absolutely hilarious. Like he had like a lot of cameras and video. He had a lot of video cameras.
He did.
He had like every time they would break one, he'd pull out another one. So
Sprite was
I
like,
found that to
damn,
be
how many
brilliant.
cameras did you bring?
He was always prepared. He was always prepared. I think those would be my favorite characters. So it would be Dan Whitman, Sprite, Makari, Druid. Um, Sometimes I liked Gilgamesh. I thought like he definitely had his moments. But yeah, so those would be my favorite characters. What about you?
I liked Faustos. Um, I don't know, maybe just I'm a huge Brian Tyree Henry fan, so it's hard for me not to like him in just about any role, whether he's playing a stone cold gangster or whatever. I love that. I love the actor. But I did like Faustos. I loved his character. He was so funny, especially his dad scenes. They were hilarious. He was just that neurotic, overprotective dad that cracked me up. I also liked, I loved Sprite. And I'm going to come back to her in a minute. I loved Kingo and his valet. I loved them. He goes and he takes over Bollywood, and when Sprite was like, "So no one's realized that you've been a leading man for 150 years," and he goes, "No, that was my great great grandfather. This was my great grandfather." And this was my dad, and now it's me. And I was just like, oh, you have it all mapped out.
Yep.
And so I loved him in his ballet. And then when they were talking about what he should do, he goes, "You should save the world." And they just look around. He goes, "I'm human, so I'm biased." Like, yeah. Um, but I did. I liked Sprite. I understood her reasoning for becoming a betrayer. And it kind of was like, on one hand, I loved when Kingo kind of compared them to Peter Pan and Wendy and Tinkerbell.
Oh, that was a perfect comparison.
That was like the perfect
Yep.
metaphor. But also, I at the end when she finally had to talk, I understood it, and you kind of understood as you saw her journey. It was like, wow, to have all this power, and especially once you kind of learned who Ashram was and what he did, it's like, why, knowing what you know, why would you create someone to be eternally 13 years old? And it was just like, so to have to live out your years, all thousands of years as a third god, like just thinking about it, I was like, I think I would, I could understand that. Like everyone else, at least as an adult, they got it, because they of course would have to start over at a certain point in life, go somewhere else. But and they got a chance to do all these things, and she never got to experience life from anything other than a 13-year-old. And even then, even though she could kind of change people's perceptions or the way they saw things, like when they were in that bar at first and the guy touched her, it was like it would wear off. And so I was just like, wow. So I understood. It made me understand more what she was going through. And even though you think of her as this thousands of year old being, it's like she still, in a certain way, has the mindset of a 13-year-old. So I was just like, wow. So I kind of understood her motivations, not justifying it, but I understood it. And so I still like her, and I would love to see how she would fit into the future, into future series. But yeah, she was one of my favorites too. Um, who was your least favorite character? I'm surprised you didn't mention Angelina Jolie. Like, I know she was one of the main reasons you wanted to see the movie.
No, no, like, I mean, like, out of my favorites, Gilgamesh was my least out of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What I will say one thing, Fastos, I loved his, like, not necessarily his character, but I loved his family dynamics. The scenes with his husband and him and their son, I love those scenes. Like, those scenes were awesome. I really, really enjoyed those scenes. Him as a character alone, no. But when you see the life that he built for himself finally, like, I love that. Like, that was great. My least favorite character would be Cersei. I, I did not like her. Yeah. I'm with the rest of them. They were like, I don't understand why, Ajak chose you. I get she felt like she was more in love with human. Like, she was the one person. I guess I understood. She was the only one who could truly save Earth because she loved the humans so much. So I get that. But at the same time, like, yeah, she was like a miss for me. Like, she was a miss.
I had mixed feelings about Cersei. I understood, especially once we found out what really happened to Ajak and why Icarus left. I understood it, especially with Ajak having a change of heart, and I guess we'll get to that in a moment. So, but as far as her character goes, Cersei, I think, has the potential to become, she's the one who's more powerful than even she realizes. And I think we saw glimpses of that. So it would be interesting to see how they develop the character as well as her power. She wasn't necessarily the typical hero in this, but so I hope that was just like, and because her introduction, especially for her to be the new de facto leader of the Eternals, was kind of underwhelming. And I guess maybe that's because she's always kind of taken a back seat, and like Faustus has said, like, you've always underestimated her. So I guess it was supposed to be that quiet thing, and at the end we get the idea that, okay, when she says she's done hiding, I think she's now ready to really just kind of come into her own and discover her power. So I hope we get to see that. And in seeing that, I hope it makes her more interesting. So I'm hoping that what we got was part of the storytelling technique as far as the character goes, and not just the character herself. Does that make sense?
Yes, I would hope the same thing, because I just felt that she was just there. Like, I didn't feel a connection to her. I understood, her reasoning. I understood, the part that she played in the whole story. But, like, yeah, no, like, and I don't know, maybe it was the acting. I don't know, maybe it was the acting. But I wasn't feeling the emotions that she was feeling. I did not connect to the character. Like, I just felt like she was a little too wooden, and she was the one supposed to be showing the most emotions, and I did not get that. I honestly did not get that. Like, I got it more from Druid on why he was doing what he was doing, even with the ethical questions about it. I got it more, and I understood his reasoning and his anger. I felt his anger in, wanting to save them and just stop all the killing. And at the same time, like, them saying you can't do that though. When you take away their humanity, when you take away their ability to, I guess, basically have conflict. But with Cersei, like, her reasoning and everything like that, like, it was just lines to me. It didn't really hit me. I didn't feel her reasoning for what she was doing, like, at all. I didn't feel her reasoning. I even felt Sprite's reasoning. I may not have agreed with Sprite, and I get the whole, you're going to be 13 for the rest of your life, but you look 13. I do not think that she mentally was 13. She wasn't mentally 13. I just think that she was going to look 13 for the rest of her life. So at the end of the day, you had a sense of maturity, and you still chose to betray your family. And she didn't betray her family necessarily. Like, I feel like the reasoning that she gave on, she wants a new life, like, she wants to be grown in her next life. I get that, but also on the fact that you were in love with a man who was in love with another woman.
Yeah, like part of it, I think, and I was waiting for that, and I'm like, did you? Because I thought when she was dropping her truth bombs, I thought she would also mention the part about her being in love with Icarus, um, but she didn't. I think that from a standpoint, I think, you know, I think I understand what you're saying. And no, she did have maturity of years and years and years of wisdom and seeing stuff. But I still think from other points, other aspects, her maturity was also stunted with her growth, if that makes sense. But yeah, um, I understood her reasoning more. So I like Gemma Chan as an actress, and like I said, I can't disagree with anything you said. I just hope that it was part of, maybe, like, this perfect example, her relationship with Dane. You get that she really cared about him. Um, and you get that she loved him. Do you think maybe some of the emotionlessness came from her having to hide who she was for so long that maybe it got to the point where she was just going through the motions?
I didn't get that she loved Dane in the movie.
I can't say that I got that she was in love with him. I got that she cared a lot about him. That she
and
did.
and there's a definite clear difference. Like, I get that she cared about him, but she cared about all humans. But to actually be in a relationship with him as long, because from what I'm getting, they were in a relationship for a pretty long time. So to be in a relationship for a pretty long time, it's like you're supposed to love him, but you don't love him. So
I
you're
think,
just going through the motions of being with him,
yeah,
which is
and
hilarious.
yeah, and that's what I get from her is that maybe because she had to live the life that she lived and she always had to hide, like, she loved the humans and she loved humanity. I get that. But maybe because she knew she could never truly be part of them, it's like she closed off that true emotional core, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like I said, I hope that the her witness, I hope that it was just a sense, excuse me, I hope it was just a tool of the storytelling and not who the character really is. Like I said, I never really heard of the Eternals until the movie was announced, so I can't say that I know much about the backstory of the group. I just started, researching more and more about them in the movie when the movie was announced. So um, we will see. But yeah, for her to be the lead and the new leader of this group, I would hope that there's more to her than meets the eye and more than what we were introduced to. So I hope that um, we get to see the real Cersei as the series progresses. Uh,
Whose power did you like the most?
Gosh. They all had really, really great powers. But as far as, I don't know. That's a difficult question. I love Faustos because I'm a nerd and I just love his super brain and the way he could build and create anything. I also liked Druid's power, although that was scary. That would be really, really scary to have, and it would take someone with a lot of self control to be able to um, have that type of power. Um, I don't know. I really don't know. What about you? Whose power did you like the most?
I would say Makari.
She had super speed, right?
Yeah, she could break the sound barrier.
Yeah.
I like that, and I like sprites. How she could create images around her.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like theirs. Druid, I would like his, but it's too it's too ethical.
Yeah, it's
Like
dangerous.
yeah, like I can't like it because it's literally taking a person's free will away from them.
And
And he justified taking away the free will of the people in the village, but ultimately they weren't living their own life. You controlled what they did, and that was not a positive thing. So yeah, I can't pick him just because it's too much of a question of ethics on what his power was. But Makari, Sprite, um, yeah, Icarus was too much like Superman.
I did like, speaking of Druid, I did like where he finally realized that, like, he was like taking away their flaws and all that took away, it took away like their free will, or without it, they wouldn't be human. Like, without those experiences, they can't feel it. Because we do have to, like, part of the human experience is fucking up. Sometimes we fuck up more than we should, and we do things that we shouldn't, but ultimately, the best of us, hopefully, we learn from those mistakes and it turns us into better people. That's me being optimistic and sounding Pollyanna. I know that. I hear it as it's coming out of my mouth. But, um, you know, so I did like his power. I don't know that I would ever trust myself to have anything like that. I think it would be cool, but also super, super dangerous. Um, so what did you think about the big reveal?
Okay, I
Like,
called it.
you called it?
I call you talking about Icarus?
About Icarus, I called Ashram being not the benevolent quote unquote god he was supposed to be. I knew that there was something more to Dina's bad weary, as they called it. Icarus, I suspected. When did you call it on Icarus?
Um, so I think it was when he showed back up, right? And he was saying like, he's not as great as they think he is, and all of that. And I was just like, and I leaned over to my friend and I was just like, he killed Ajax. And she was like, what? And I said, he killed Ajax. Watch. And, like, I can't pinpoint the exact scene, but I remember guessing it pretty early on in the like present day. And I like leaned over and told her. And then when it was revealed, I said, told you. I was like, I told you he killed her. I told you he killed her. So yes, I called that. I definitely called that. I was just like, that made sense. And then also what was the big guy name? What was the big guy name again? The
You
holier than now guy, the one who created them. What was his name?
Ashram?
Ashram. I called on that being fake. Now I didn't know that Ajax knew about the real reason. Like, I didn't call that part, but knowing that the person they were following was not giving them the best direction and was fake, because I looked at it as in the whole Loki thing, right? From Loki's TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And how, you realize that all the agents were taken from their lives and made into agents, right? And so the big, the three machines that they were following, right? And there was like one man behind it all. And so I kind of looked at it that way. Like I thought it would be revealed on who was actually like in charge of, like, the Eternals and everything like that, the celestial beings, the celestial beings. So I thought it would be like revealed, like somebody was in charge, like in charge of creating them or whatever. But I did call that it would end up being fake.
I knew that Ajax was in on whatever Ashram's plan was. I just didn't know what his plan was. Then I knew at one point, I knew that when it was revealed that Icarus killed her, I wasn't surprised, because I knew when they kept talking about why did he leave and he never had an answer. I'm like, he left because he knew whatever Ajax and Ashram were up to. And then, but I think I really, really, truly became suspicious of Icarus being involved with the big bads in some kind of way when the deviants had him and they didn't kill him. And so I was like, oh, so I kind of suspected, like, oh, he's working with the deviant. So, and I just couldn't figure it out, because that thing that kept bothering me. I'm like, why didn't they kill him when they had him? And so I was like, okay. But I was surprised. Now, what did surprise me about the big reveal is that Ashram created the deviants, and then but then he realized that there was a flaw, and they kept evolving and taking on the characteristics of whatever it was that they were killing. So he created the Eternals to basically keep the deviants under control and to do his bidding when it was time for whatever, I forget the name, of course, obviously, of the celestial being. When it was time for them to rise and destroy the planet, then the Eternals would make sure that would happen, and then he would reset their memories. And so I was kind of curious, like, that's why Ajax wanted Thena back in that machine, because she wanted to reset her, because she knew the last reset didn't quite work. And so I was like, oh, so that started to make a little bit more sense to me. It's like, oh, okay. So I was surprised about them, and then and so once they found that out, I was also wondering, I knew that he kind of knew something, because Icarus was the only one who didn't really have an emotional reaction to it. He was just like, oh, okay. Like, everybody else was like, we got to do something, or they had this stunned reaction. He was just like, oh. And I was just like, yeah, there's something.
I know already. I know what's going
down. Yeah. So there was something off about that. But the big reveal, that kind of was like, damn, Ashram was a cold mofo. But I also agree with Sprite. Like, why would you? I was like, and you're kind of cruel, because why would you make someone a perpetual preteen? Like, that's just horrible. And I guess as you wipe their memories every time the celestial event happens, they don't remember their past life, so they just remember the moment of, I guess, quote unquote, recreation. So I guess because they had been on Earth for so long this time, and the Thanos' finger snap, I guess that's what we're still calling it, had kind of delayed that transition or whatever it was supposed to be. But I was just like, oh.
Why did it take thousands of years to get there, though?
I don't know. That's what I didn't understand. I'm like, why didn't he recall after they killed the last of the deviants? Why didn't he recall them? He could have put them in stasis or something, especially if they weren't supposed to interfere with human events.
Yeah, that seemed really off to me, because I'm like, okay, you made Sprite a preteen. I get that. But I'm like, I'm looking at it as in, you made her a preteen because she wasn't supposed to spend 7,000 years on the planet. So why did you leave them there for thousands of years after they killed the last deviant?
And
Like,
that
that
was
made no sense.
and that was something they also brought up, because who was it? One of them was like, was it Makari? She's like, okay, we can finally go home. Like, Makari was the one who wanted to go home. And I was just like, and so if someone else had asked, like, well, why were we still here? Especially if we couldn't interfere with human events, and you knew this next stasis thing wasn't going to happen for a while. It's like, or the next celestial event wasn't going to happen for a while. You could have recalled them. Um, so it's like, what purpose did they have? Especially if you control both the deviants and if you control both the deviants and the eternals, like that, to me, that didn't make much sense. So all right, so we kind of talked about it before. Kit Harrington as Dane gosh, I can't even think of his name now. It was Dane Whitman, right?
Whitman, yeah.
Whitman. He is going to be the Black Knight.
Yes.
And that is a character that I also like. When I was watching the movie, I'm like, okay, mental note, because I was dead tired when I was watching. I was like, who the hell is this? Because again, my superhero knowledge is not that great, so I always have, whenever there's a new major character like that or a new secondary character introduced, I always have to go look them up. So I was like, okay, I got to look up Dane Whitman. And he's the Black Knight, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I was excited for that. And for those who don't know, the Black Knight is going to be an Avenger. So do you think they're going to spin him off or keep him as part of the Eternals, or do you think we'll see him in a different part of the MCU before? You think he's going to get his own movie?
He's supposed to be within the universe, so I don't know if they're going to keep him with the Eternals. I don't think so. I think he's going to he's supposed to show up in other Marvel movies for his character as he develops, rather than waiting for him to develop on the Eternals.
Okay. Do you think he should get his own movie or just be folded into the
I don't know who
Avengers?
he is yet. Like, I mean, I know he's the Black Knight, and I did research the Black Knight. So, like, I knew Kit, like, I'm like, there's no way you are going to hire Kit Harrington, and that is his only part, like, at the beginning and then at the very end. So, like, right after Cersei disappears, gets taken, I pulled out my phone and I started researching, like, who is this dude? Because he has to be somebody of importance in the Marvel universe. And then I saw, like, okay, he's a Black Knight. He has, like, his sword. I was like, all right. So then I'm telling my friends, like, okay, so he's a Black Knight. Like, he's one of, like, her major love interests. So he's here to stay. But you don't know what's gonna come of it. You don't know what it's, because it wasn't, he didn't have that promising of a character in the movie. First of all, the movie was so friggin' long. It's 2.5 hours. Come on. And then in that, he was at the very, very beginning, and then he was at the end. And then they had him in the end credits, where you were just like, oh shoot, but here's another character nobody knew about. Now we got to research it, but you didn't fully invest in introducing him correctly in the actual movie. So you don't know where he fits in the Marvel universe right now.
Yeah. And again, but at least, and that's what I was talking about before. At least we know that he's coming. We know what to expect from this character. We know that we're going to see him somewhere else. So when he does pop up in a different movie, or he gets his own movie, it won't be a total what the fuck. Like, that's what I'm saying. They could have taken at least one character, Cersei, Selma Hayek, anybody, anyone, Sprite, any one of these characters, and given us a post-credit scene with them, kind of laying the groundwork or introducing the Eternals. Um, you know, and so that, to me, the only other character they didn't do that with was Shang-Chi. Even we met Black Panther in Captain America Civil War. Shang-Chi, it actually happened to work with. But just about every other character we've met somewhere before, like in an Avengers movie, in a post-credit scene from another movie, so forth and so on. So I think if they would have done that, it would have made this one a little bit more palatable. If they would have cut down on some of the history, wouldn't have had it so choppy. It did need a little bit more action. I understood why it didn't necessarily have all the action. But yeah, they could have. But I am looking forward to seeing the Black Knight show up again. From what I read, he seems like a really interesting character, especially his family history. That would be great. Maybe even give him a Disney Plus prequel series. If you don't want to give him a whole movie, give us 6 episodes to get to know him or something. That would be great. So, will you watch the sequel?
Well, it's Marvel, yeah.
Okay.
I feel like that's not like, because I'll watch every Marvel movie, just like no matter how bad DC movies are, I will watch every single DC movie. Like, I'm not skipping a DC movie, and I'm not going to skip a Marvel movie. Now, am I super excited for Eternals 2? No.
Okay.
But I will be watching it.
Okay, so let me rephrase that. Besides feeling like you're contractually obligated to watch it, is it something you would be looking forward to?
No, not necessarily. No, I'm not going to be looking forward to it, but when it's here, I will definitely be in the theater to watch it.
See, and I am. And I think, and maybe because the movie kind of thwarted them, pun intended, dark world them, pun intended, how they came back better than ever and made the best Thor with Thor 3. I'm thinking that maybe, because in the MCU franchise, Thor was the weakest link, like until Thor 3. Would you agree with that?
Wait, what? Wait, do we include Hulk?
Well, no, because they haven't really done Hulk. That came out before the MCU, like the one with Edward Norton.
Yes,
that wasn't part of the MCU.
That Thor is the weakest link.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that they learn from the mistakes with this one. Now, it was not as bad as what the headlines and the critics would lead you to believe. It was the number 1 movie when it came out. We're still in the middle of a panorama, It's also going to probably be the number 1 movie again this week. So,
Eddie,
huh?
That's not an achievement. It's a Marvel movie.
I get it, but still,
I feel like it's a Marvel movie. That's not an achievement. You're definitely going to be number 1. You're a superhero movie. Superhero movies sell no matter what it's about.
I know, but they're talking about the box office. So I'm just saying it's not as bad as everyone is making it seem. It's not great, but it's not horrible. So, okay, you said there should be a sequel. So let's talk real quick before we wrap this up. What would you like to see happen in a sequel? Like, where would you like to see the story go? Besides making Cersei more interesting and palatable as a lead.
More action. So one thing I will say is I hope Icarus is not actually dead. And I want him to come back. I don't care if they have to create a whole new Icarus or how that works or whatever like that. But I do want Icarus to come back. I did like the dynamics of him turning on his family and having such a strong belief in what he was doing. Just more action. Like I want more action. Like, you set up this movie with all the emotions to show us the connections to the human world. But can I make another point? You realize majority of them did not actually socialize with the human world. Like, majority of them actually separated themselves from the human world. Ajak lived in the middle of nowhere. Thena and Gilgamesh lived in the middle of nowhere. Makari never even left the ship. I wonder how she ate food and survived. Oh, or maybe she didn't have to eat food. I don't know.
No, the chip bag. Remember when they went in and they stepped on the chip bag?
Oh, Lord Jesus. For thousands of years.
She left the ship to go steal stuff, but that's where she lived. Like, when she wasn't stealing, because you saw
but the ship was underground.
Look,
It was buried.
just work with me.
Okay, my bad. Yes. She ran out of the ship. Like, I mean, technically she can break the sound barrier. So yeah. But when you look at it, most of them did not socialize with the human world. So but you did set up the love that the fight, that they loved each other, that they felt they were family. So they'll fight for each other or not fight against each other, with Kingo. So I want more action. Like, you set it up, you got the emotional parts out of the way. I need a Marvel feel. Maybe there are people who are sick and tired of the Marvel feel, but I'm not, because that works every time. And so I need the Marvel feel. I need to be able to laugh, to be like, oh my God, like this is ridiculous, but it's so good. Like I need the dynamic to be there. And I think the group dynamic wasn't necessarily there. So I need them to build on the group dynamic and bring me some action. That's my 2 requests for Eternals 2. What about you?
Yes, and the one thing that we forgot to talk about, Harry Styles. Yes.
Oh no.
You
Go
didn't
ahead.
you didn't
What
like
about
Harry Styles?
No.
Okay.
There wasn't
Well,
even an excitement in the theater when he showed up. Like, I was just like, oh, they gave him a part? Like, that was my reaction.
I'm interested to see what they do with Harry Styles' character. Aros, I believe, who is the quote unquote brother of Thanos. So I'm interested to see where he will fit into the overall thing. I agree with you. I think this one was the setup piece. I think it really was, that we will actually get to see more of their dynamic and how they fight for each other. Because as soon as they heard that they were in trouble, or they felt that those other three, that who was it, Fausto, Siri, and Kingo, were in trouble, the first thing they said is, we have to go back. And so I'm interested to see that, but I agree with you. I need more action. I want to actually see something that makes me believe Cersei is the lead. I also agree. I hope Icarus isn't dead. Because all I kept thinking is, wow, he's going to make a fantastic supervillain or a fantastic foe for this series.
No, anti-hero. He's going to be like a Loki.
Okay, so you think so he's going to be the quote unquote anti-hero, but I was thinking supervillain. Like I was just like, wow. And I loved that. I'm interested to see what happens with Sprite. She was one of the most compelling characters, and she was so interesting to me. Even, just because, what did she say? She said yes. And then it's like, it was a perfect case of be careful what you wish for, because it's like, now that you're human, yeah, you're 13, you got to go to school.
That was funny.
And so I agree with you. More of the humor. I did like the humor that they had, but kind of, it was sort of like a lot of it got spoiled in the trailers. So it's
Yes.
just like, when you get the context of it, it was like, oh, okay. But it's like, oh, now I get to see the rest of the joke. Ha ha ha. But I've seen it so many times through the trailer that it was kind of spoiled. So yes, I would like to see them fight together as a cohesive unit. We don't have to have all the backstory anymore. Now that we've gotten the backstory out of the way, let's get to the fun stuff. I get that they were supposed to be different. I get that this was a different feel for a Marvel film, but you also can't cut away from what's made you so successful. So now that they got that out of the way, I look forward to seeing what they do with this, and where the Eternals will continue to pop up throughout the MCU, and how they will keep moving forward with the series. And I want to see more of the Black Knight. And I did not hate it as much as I thought I would, as much as the things, all the headlines and the Rotten Tomato score led me to believe. So let's wrap this puppy up. Let's rate this. What are you rating it? What are you rating it?
I am going to rate it a 3.0. It's halfway there. It's a little bit more than half of my popcorn. So rather than getting a big bucket, I just got a regular popcorn bag. And it definitely has potential, and I'm hoping that Marvel lives up to my faith in the potential that you see of the story, and that they continue to grow from that. So yeah, that would be my ratings. 3 popcorns.
3 popcorns. Not bad, not bad. I am just a little bit above you. I gave it a 3.25. Just, I guess my love of Chloe Zhao, and how surprised I was that I did not end up hating it as much as I thought I would. I was fully prepared to have it be just as bad, if not worse, than Thor: Dark World. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, it's not that. Um, and so it it was a long movie, a little longer probably than it should have been or needed to be. But yeah, we'll see. It has potential. The series has potential to be great. So I hope that, it overcomes this bump and lives up to its full potential. Any final words or thoughts about the Eternals before we shut this puppy down?
Other than Cersei, I like the actors. They played their roles very well.
Okay, so just one final question. You didn't like, is it that you didn't like Gemma Chan as Cersei? You don't like Gemma Chan as an actress, or you just didn't like the character?
I don't know Gemma Chan as an act. Well, from what I've seen, she plays the same role every single time, so I don't know how well she acts. But I don't know. I don't know if it's a character. I'd have to see somebody, I guess, in the role. I don't know if it's a character or it was her acting, but I will say her acting did not sell the character for me.
Okay. All right. Well, we will have to see what happens with that. Interesting. That does it for this week's episode of the Popcorn Wind Down. Please be sure to listen, like, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and or Spotify Podcasts. You can also keep up to date on the latest in entertainment and pop culture news, as well as other amazing kernels of pop culture goodness at thepopcornwinddown.com. That's it. That's the plug. Pop, 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 pop. Thank you as always, and be sure to join us next week when we discuss Colin in Black and White. I'm really curious to see what you have to say about that.
I am actually excited. I haven't started it yet. I'll be starting it tomorrow. But I am actually excited because even like people have been asking me like, yo, you watch Colin in Black and White yet? So that means like I really need to watch it so I can have these conversations.
Yeah. I can't wait till we have our conversation on it next week. Not to spoil too much or give it away. So tune in next week to hear our thoughts on that. And until next time, I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tammy. Bye.
Peace.